Good morning, everyone. Wow, after this amazing presentation, I have no English skill, but I could still understand how great, sophisticated, and their most updated and very eye-opening presentation. I could just feel it without even understanding. And then you have me. Let me just say this before. Just don't no expectation. Hey, look at me, my costume. This costume, my attire shows everything. So there's no intellectual, there's no sophistication in my presentation, and it's all in Japanese. And I have a little shichi and to follow. So just relax and sit back and just enjoy. You need some kind of a break, kind of very, relax, because we need diversity in the world, right? I just think that here in Hikarie, I think I'm the only one wearing this sweat shirt. I'm like, we could be so lonely. I feel so lonely in Hikari in Shibuya. Look at me, my dress, my costume. I live in Takada no Baba. Usually, I don't go above Ikebukuro, north, and I don't go south than Shinjuku. I don't go west than Nakano. I don't go easter than Akihabara. Akihabara is quite east, but because Kamen Rider figure, and I go to AKB 48 items, so that's where I live. But I'm here in Shibuya Hikari. It's so cool, stylish, sophisticated, and Tokyo Group had built this as a new epicenter for the transmission of information with a very strong passion. But I personally think, and maybe with the intention of the Tokyo Group, I don't think the new culture would not be coming out. I'm sorry to say this. Sorry. Hey, just for the sake of peace of the world. Is there anyone from Tokyo Group? Oh yeah, Hikari, it's great. I'm touched. I wanted to come here every day. Hikari is the greatest station building. Thank you, Tokyo. Great. And I'm gonna please have an ad for Tokyo in my magazine. So, why Hikari? Shibuya Hikari. I have a question about Hikari because it's the Shibuya. I think Hikaria depends on the brand of Shibuya. Well, in the image, it has a little old, and they kind of depend on the Shibuya brand. And now you have a little intellectual, but no, I'm not going to live up to your expectation. And my presentation is not going to be that. Because first of all, I'm a critic for subculture. I'm an otaku critic. And my expertise, AKB48 in Kamen Rider. So that's me. Now, pop culture development, not just depending on otaku, it comes from indies community. That's a must. Popular music, fashion, or otaku, everything. Half of them kind of like fan slash creator. That's a very maniac people. People hard to see how much they're a consumer or author or writer, and it comes out naturally and organically. It comes out. That's where you have the pop culture and you have very explosive power. So this environment would give a new category. So, for instance, think about the post-World War II Japan. The hotspot of subculture is a hangout place of young people. It was Asakusa, and then Ginza, and then in 70s it moved to Shinjuku, and then in 80s it moved to Shibuya. However, after Shibuya, I was thinking, what is the culture spot? When I was junior high or high school, it was in 19s. Shibuya was a hotspot for culture. But then what about in 2000, after the new century? Shibuya is not really creating a new culture. There's no culture coming from the city or urban. Some people say, hey, Shimokitazawa, a small theater, or Nakameguro, Daikam, there's a great shops in that area. But there's no new category of the culture coming from a city. Think about the 80s Shibuya. It was all dispersed around Shibuya. Maybe people in 40s, you can kind of feel and you can understand what I'm saying. So the question is, where is the new culture coming in the 21st century? The answer is very simple. In one word, internet. Think about the two channel created ASCII and Nico Nico moving, and Magic Island created the mobile, and Pixie created a secondary creative character. And that happened after the 2000. In the pop culture were happening and all this new category came from a cyberspace. So why is that? Very simple. Because I said, the indies community is there, and the indies community is going to create two categories. There are two conditions. One, that, the first thing that require to have that, you need to have excess communication, interaction. They would have to really condense communication. It's just not just having people. You have to have a heated discussion. Sometimes it's even fighting for argument, and that's where you have a culture. And you would need to have those things to come up with a new culture. So you don't need to have the same kind of people, not just a similar character, not same generation. That's not going to create a good. You need to have people from Hokkaido all the way to Okinawa, or for people from overseas. You need to have some kind of conflict or some, something that do not meet in day to day. If they don't like the same animation, if they don't like the same sneaker, you have to meet a people who have a different things. And just because they have something in common, that's where you have a new culture. And I go to a handshake event for the AKB48. Sometimes you see junior high school girls or a 40s middle-aged guy or someone who look like a sales rep from a business company. And I never see and talk to these people unless it's for the AKB handshake. That's the power of subculture. So those two conditions are required for the new culture. The advantage is being best utilized in the manga and animation culture. And the otaku culture, the Japanese geek culture, has assimilated very well to the internet. And in the reality, the two conditions that I said, you need to have a diverse community and you need to have an excess interaction and communication. Those two conditions could happen more in the internet world rather than the real space. So that's what's happening right now. And, you could steal some intention in the air, but that's the sad reality of the world. Seriously, that's true. For instance, in the 90s, think about the Harajuku in 90s, and because they have the pedestrian paradise, when that has been closed, the culture has been closed, and the backstreet for Harajuku, but after the skyrocketing of the land and all the shop closed and the culture has diminished in backstreet of Harajuku, the same culture crisis happened in otaku. That was in 2008, Akihabara Massacre, the series of there's a friend with no friend. He just crashed into the people, and a very sad, tragic event in Akihabara. And so temporarily, the Akihabara pedestrian paradise was closed. And I went to Akihabara back then. There was a very sadness in the air. Like, it wasn't like the old Akihabara. I thought maybe this town is going to diminish or close down, but that didn't happen to Akihabara. It was just a temporary slowdown. The otaku culture did not have much of a damage because of that incident. Why? Because there's an internet, the web space was there. Because on day-to-day, they would see in the 2 channels or Pixiv. That's how they communicate. And once in a while, they go out in Akihabara or go to the event. So the real community in the cyber, the real physical place is just for the festive events. And just because the pedestrian paradise was closed in Akihabara, they still have a strong otaku culture, and that has a big contribution for that flourishment of the culture. So if the 90s, if we had more internet, things would not turn out the way it is now. I think Harajuku's culture still exists if we had internet in 1990s. So if we have twice a year event, so what about the real space? My presentation is like, all we need is internet. That's going to be the very detrimental conclusion. Tokyo Group will never invite me for the event like this. But no, that's not the story. I have a good conclusion. We need a real physical location. So what's the role for the real physical location? That is, I give you a little clue. It's an event for the festive. But think about the comic market. Twice a year, 3 days, 500,000 people would attend, and manga animation industry would have big festive event. And a cyberspace community is active, and they would need some place where they would have an output of that. We would expect for some festive events in the physical. Hey, your cell phone is ringing over there. Yes. So when we have a festive event and a physical location, and that would have a big boost in our community. Same thing can be said for AKB48, for the handshake event and the election. Now there's a lot of discussion. The CD is not selling well, but the festive is going very well. The subculture pop community is moving to the cyberspace, and what we expect for the real physical is that festive and non-day-to-day event. So the question is, if we have what can the real physical location do for the culture? What is the role of the physical location? That's to be a venue to provide a big box of venue for those big events. For instance, I go to AKB48 handshake event twice a month, and there's a lot of event for the AKB48 handshake. Sometimes there's a nationwide big handshake event for AKB48, and sometimes they will not even announce where the venue is going to be. And then they would see in a Makuhari Messe or Tokyo Big Sight, it's either of these two big event space. So for us, it doesn't matter. As long as they can accommodate 50,000 people, it doesn't matter how the cities are, what the traditions are, what this community and this culture, etc., around the city. They don't need any constant context and story behind that. What we need is the big box that accommodate the size. All we need is a big size to accommodate people. It's true. So this is really the really blunt reality, but it's very important because no matter how wonderful the community sites are, the more movement you have, the momentum you have, you need some kind of an output event, maybe once a year or twice a year, a big festival event. And if you have a big box to accommodate that big energy, it's not the city. All we need is a big architecture, a big box would accommodate the culture. So my conclusion, let me get to the conclusion. What we need is a pop culture. Two things, two architecture. One is a good community site architecture on the web space. That's where a diverse user can have an access, communication, stimulation. Two, we need a physical big box of a venue. You have these two architecture, those things work very well, and that's when you have a pop culture would have a power, and pop culture can be developed for architecture. Therefore, Tokyo Group. So don't hate me. I'm supporting you. Thank you. Thank you.